So the first thing we wanted to do, and I asked everyone in the class to do, was to define for yourself. And that this isn't hard to do, but it's like when you look at your life, when you look at how it's going, where are you stuck? Where do you really need to feel magic taking flight in your life? And many of us are higher functioning in some areas than others, but there's always a strand that goes through everything in our lives. But in those areas where we're not as high functioning, it's going to show up more. So we have to, is it money? Is it relationships? Is it purpose? Is it feeling good in your own skin? What is it? Where is it you really feel you need something? And I ask this question because as I talk to you about these principles today and these concepts, I want you to think how that's going to work or how that might apply to the area you feel stuck in, and you're needing that ease, you're needing that sense of well-being to come into your experience. So put that in your back pocket for now, and let's move on. And the first thing I wanted to remind everyone of, because it's important. I mean, perspective is essentially everything. I mean, if nothing else, quantum physics has shown us that there is no such thing as a clean slate. And we all come into this world brand new babies, possibilities abound for a new life. However, we bring with us our history, wherever that comes from whatever experiences we've had before this one, where we've taken on a body again, that we all have momentums that we're dealing with. We have them in this lifetime, we have them in the present moment, we have them from the life we've lived now, but we come into the life with some karmic implications as well. And this ties directly into magnetism itself. I mean, and magnetism is essentially the attracting piece of us. How our magnetism is attracted. Is it all the way up to 100, or is it down at a 5? Where are we on the magnetism level? And often magnetism is karmically related, for a whole lot of reasons that we don't need to go into this specific conversation, but we can always improve our magnetism. We can always solve and bring our karmas into balance. We have that possibility. But when we think about stoking our magnetism, having it become more, which is often part of the challenge, say because of our karmic situation, we come into a lifetime, and we'll use a 1 to 10 scale here, and 10 being, you're born into a billionaire family, 1 being your poverty. So let's say you came in at a 5, you're somewhere in the middle, right? Or a 4, something like that. That means throughout your life, you're probably always going to have enough. There's probably always going to be a way for you to get fed and have housing and things of this nature. But how do you get up to the 5s and the 6s and the 7s and so on? That's usually a magnetism level. And so when we focus on stoking the fire, that fire that draws to us, that makes things attractive, makes us attractive, it's vibrational. And this is where paying attention to how you feel becomes the most important practice any of us can ever develop. And a lot of the ways we feel have nothing to do with anybody else. It usually is focused on how we feel about ourselves. What we tell ourselves is true. In coaching, we call it breaking the story. What's the story we're telling ourselves? Are we telling ourselves it's not possible? Are we telling ourselves we can't ever figure it out? Are we telling ourselves the deck is stacked against us? Are we telling ourselves that it's magical thinking? What are we telling ourselves about what is possible for us? So this is the thing we need to continue to work on, in increasing our magnetism. And when we do that, it automatically cojoins with karma. We're not going to be able to move the needle in one area and not move it in the other. But if we know that these are the actual pieces we're working with, it gives us something to focus on. And I think In all forms of personal growth and perspective, having a focal point is very useful. The next thing that we deal with, besides our karma and our magnetism, is our experience, because experience is what builds momentum. And our experience can be many different things. Set aside the potential of past life, set aside all of that. We grow up in a family, and we pick up what our parents model to us and maybe a little of what they say to us. And we get points of view about what works and what doesn't work. And some of it works okay, some of it works really well, and some of it doesn't work at all. But if we believe it's true because we've been taught that or told that, then we're going to keep doing that. And if we keep doing something that doesn't work very well, that's where we're going to run into some additional self esteem issues and self worth issues. But that's another topic for another day. But experience itself tells us what is true and what to believe and who we are supposed to be. And it invites conclusions, which conclusions are our enemy. To the best of our ability, we want to stay away from conclusion thinking, because as soon as we conclude something, as soon as we say, I know it all, I have the answer, we're kind of sunk, because we're in an ever expanding universe. And truth be told, each of us is always expanding. That's what we're doing here. We're learning how to have human emotions. We're learning how to become more. And as we become more, consciousness itself becomes more. So the experiences we have and the conclusions we make and the beliefs we hold, we must always be willing to challenge them. We must be. And in the United States of America right now, just to make a point, we have a lot of political craziness. Two very distinct points of view operate in American culture. That is such an amazing gift, because we really get a chance to see what irritates us and how we think other people are really wrong and crazy and just ridiculous and stupid. We're drawing a lot of conclusions rather than looking at our reaction to it, which is where the juicy, delicious stuff lives. It's in our reaction to it. So that's an example of how experience trains us to have reactions to things. And there's many more layers to that example I shared, but the point I'm making is our experience teaches us things, and it's not all true. It's not all correct, because if it were correct, we would feel at peace. If it were correct, it would cause us to become closer to each other as opposed to the opposite. But experience adds on to how our magnetism can develop or not develop. And this word momentum off to the right is a thing. A momentum is a thing. We get running down the road real fast on a downhill slope, and it's easy. You're on a bike going downhill, easy, 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 easy. But what happens when you get to the bottom of that hill and you realize, oh crap, I went the wrong direction? Felt good getting here, but all of a sudden, oops, now I got to go all the way back to square one and then get going in the right direction. And that's what a lot of us end up doing, is we have to stop the momentum we are in, which means we have to become aware that we have a momentum going that we want to stop. And then we got to go back the other direction and go the other direction. So these are all things that influence our magnetism and our ability to receive. So the more we get away from conclusion thinking and thinking we're right about something, but rather become observers of experience and say, what is my response pattern to this? And let me focus on that and solely that. Unless I have the ability to get out and actually do something, boots on the ground, let me focus on my reaction. And even if we're doing boots on the ground, we still need to understand our own response patterns to the stimulus we're receiving. And if and until we are joyful and in balance and at peace, we're not really aligning with high vibration frequencies. So this is where we really start to get into how do I invite magic? How do I do it? Now, if you haven't watched it yet, I've sent it out in my newsletter for a couple of weeks, but it's on my YouTube page. And I think it's my main video that's playing right now. It's 2 minutes. It's not a big investment of your time. But I really lay out this relationship to superconscious, which is so critical. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is how and what you want to put your attention on. And look at this little sweet pea, this little teeny kid. Look at the enthusiasm. Look at that certainty. Look at that joy. Look at that. Just this little pumpkin just embodies the feeling that we want to be going for in every moment. So let's talk about what superconscious actually means, what it does for us. And in that video, I'm referencing why your manifestations don't happen. It explains a lot. Let's divide it up into 3 parts. Let's say off to the left, and we have subconscious. And I'm not speaking of Freudian subconscious. I'm speaking of a momentum that from our past, which is karmas and its magnetism and its experiences and its beliefs that we've had for however long we've had them 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, depending upon the person. And that has a lot of weight on it. There's a lot of momentum in that subconscious patterning. And that's what we would probably call more like autopilot, that these are our default responses. And whenever we're orienting through life, it's really easy to just like fall back into that. That's just familiar. We know it. And even if it's not perfect and it doesn't always work well, we know that path. We know how to navigate that path. And it's familiar and it's comfortable. Even when it's uncomfortable, it's comfortable. Then we have the conscious, which would be right in the center. And the conscious is what we're doing right now. We're focused on this moment. You're listening to my voice. You're theoretically looking at this picture of this little pumpkin kid. And you're thinking about, how do I digest this content? Can I take this in? Can I understand it? Am I going to be able to apply this? Is this going to make my life different? Oh, meanwhile, I've got dinner on the stove. Oh my goodness. And I have to get to the grocery store. That's all happening right now in the conscious mind, right? And that's important because the conscious mind is where we're going to set our desires intentionally, deliberately, for what we want to have happen in our life. That's how we make a plan, right? But at the same time, in the conscious, we still have that subconscious, which is active even when we're not aware of it. But when we go in the superconscious, this is where the rub is for everybody. This is where the rub is. Because we have to live in the superconscious more than we do the subconscious or even the conscious, and vibrate there. Because the problem we're having in our life, or the lack or the scarcity, whatever it is that's not working, cannot be solved by the energy of the conscious moment. It can only be solved by an energy you have yet to experience. And the only way you can expedite that is by vibrating into the superconscious. So what does that look like? Let's say you're having a money challenge. You're out of money, or you're so far in debt you can barely make it each month, or maybe you're not making it each month. But rather than go, oh my God, I'm not making it. Oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Oh my God, am I going to have to file bankruptcy? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and all that. We have to pretty much ignore, find a way to distract us from the conscious moment and go to the super conscious and say, all my needs are met beyond my wildest expectation. And this is so much fun. Just money is coming in from known and unknown sources. And I just see my life opening up and my debt disappearing. And I'm so grateful that all these ideas and opportunities have come into my life in this particular way. And I had no idea it was going to unfold like this. Fantastic. It's so fun to play this game because now I realize I will never be trapped again. I will always be free. And I do feel free. And it's so much fun. And I'm playing with life. And I'm getting ready to plan my vacation now. And I'm going to 4 different countries in Europe. And how wonderful life is. That's super conscious. And that takes a lot of energy and focus and concentration when we spent the majority of our time in the conscious and the subconscious. We have these momentums in place and they want to call us back to the misery, wants to call us back. I'm going to be reality based. I'm not going to fool myself. I'm going to be practical. Well, you can see how that's working for you because being practical only is going to take us so far. It can only take us so far. And let's talk about that for a minute. I'm going to show you a different graphic because it's worthwhile to revisit this conversation. Here it is. It's going to take a minute because this is a picture on my desktop. This is in the book, The Energy of Abundance, and I've put this in multiple classes because it's relevant in every class. But let's talk about vibrations and frequency and resonance. We're all a mixture of various vibrations. And I love this sort of rainbowish graphic because when I have seen auras physically, this is what they look like to me. But when you look at the very bottom of the spectrum, where it's anger and violence points to counterclockwise, we can actually turn ourselves in the wrong direction, just like when you go down the wrong road and have to go back. These frequencies take us in the wrong direction. Now we can utilize them from time to time. Every once in a blue moon, we can use anger to push us, can kind of give us a jump start, but it's not much more useful for more than a jump start. But then we go up the spectrum a bit and look at the self doubt and the self abandonment, the self loathing and the depression, which is really a rejection. It's beyond resistance, it's a rejection to life itself. Because you're deserving, you're valuable, because you exist. That's it. All you have to do is exist. And you have the wealth of the universe at your feet. So anytime you go to these places, you begin rejecting life itself. And we can get in these momentums and these patterns of doing this, and we can do it if we want to. But that's the net result. And then we get up to a next level up where we see apathy, boredom, confusion, fear, frustration, which isn't as terrible, but look what it does. It stops your process. So we can live in fear and we can be frustrated with our moment and we can find ourselves feeling bored and we can sometimes not even give a crap. We're so tired emotionally. And so we just tune out. Well, then that puts us in a stop situation where we're not going backwards anymore, but we're certainly not going forward. But when we get to these other vibrations, enthusiasm, joy, courage, happiness, ease, generosity, optimism, those are the high frequencies. We can make progress. We can align. And that's what we're doing. We're aligning with those things that feel like that. We can't match a joyful outcome when we are sitting in apathy and boredom. Like attracts like. This is why when we're sitting in the superconscious, it's so important. We gotta play with it. We can't afford to stay stuck in the conscious moment where we're afraid. or we're doubting ourselves. We can do it, but the more we do it and reject our position as creators and say, well, not today, I'm checking out of being a creator. That's fine. We can do that, but we're only delaying. We're only delaying. So we want to learn to spend time every day. And it takes focus and determination and concentration, and we get better at it. It's just like going to the gym. It's like if you haven't been to the gym in a long time, it's going to take a few weeks, a month, 6 months, however long it takes for you to get conditioned. It's the same way with your mind and your response patterns. You got to build it up, you got to build it in, and it becomes easier and easier. And guess what? When you start to get some wins behind your belt and you start to see that it works to attract and it attracts more frequently and more significantly, you're going to see the correlation. It's not going to be a mystery, and it will spur you on to do more. So learn, develop the skill of staying in the superconscious. I can't say enough about it. Do it. This is the work. Because ultimately, here's what we're doing: we're aligning with what we want. I talked about it a moment ago. If you want something that feels fantastic, a great relationship, a lot of money, a great job, a fantastic trip, you have to align with it energetically. And so here's a goal or a to do, if you like. Before you even think about anything, for you, just every day when you get out of bed, align yourself with God, with the universe, with source first to the best of your ability. That this is why meditation first thing in the day is so useful, because we're in the best, most receptive state. We're listening to higher wisdom and we are being guided. We're not pushing, we're not forcing, we're not cajoling, we aren't worried about. We turn into receivers. The next thing we want to do is your work. The work of this process is learning how to let go of thoughts that do not feel good. We talked about this earlier. Pay attention to how you feel. Don't stuff it. Don't pretend it's not there. Be with yourself, embrace yourself, and understand what you are doing and how you can learn to let it go. Some of us might call that surrender, different words for it, but learn how to let go of thoughts that don't feel good. That's the work. That's the work of becoming magnetic. And a duplication of sorts from the first one: align vibrationally before taking action. So I said it a few times earlier, but you think about how you would feel. Say you're having money troubles. We'll just use that as the example. And you think how contracted it feels when you have money troubles and you're worried and this and that. But you think about how you feel when it is plentiful. Wow, it's free. And I can go have fun now. And there's some things I need that I can go get now. And I just love how the universe provides for me. It's that feeling. I'm always taken care of. All my needs are met beyond my wildest expectation. Be in that state and then go out and apply for that job. Then go out and sign up on a dating app. Then go out and try and repair that relationship. Then do the to do, but only before you're vibrationally aligned with where you actually want to be. In my book, The Energy of Abundance, I call it stacking the deck energetically. And my example was my kids were little, both my kids had learning disabilities. And so whenever I would go to school for the teacher conference, it was always a nightmare because I'd go in a room with 6 or 7 people and all of them would sit there and basically tell me how screwed up my kid was. And for anybody who's a parent, you know how difficult that is to hear anybody, pick at your child. Didn't like those meetings. But a time came when I said, you know what? I'm going to shift this. And one time before I went into one of these meetings, I sat in my car for about 15 minutes and I put into my energy what I wanted to experience, the outcome I wanted to have. I wanted it to be good. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to feel productive. I wanted to feel validated. I wanted it to be a happy experience. And by God, if that isn't what happened, and I never had another negative experience after that, quite frankly. So I call it stacking the deck, but it's aligning vibrationally to the outcome you want to have as if it's already here. The next thing that takes a lot of focus, concentration, discipline, and strength building, is we have to learn to receive all situations that come to us as the best outcome, no matter how it unfolds. We have to stop judging it. Life is not one note played over and over and over, it's a series of notes. Think of a piano. What do they have? 88 keys on a piano? Life has more than that. And the divine is in charge. We aren't. And no matter how deliberate we become in our creative process, life is still going to happen to us. There's only so much we can control that we have influence over. But whenever something comes to us, we need to receive it as divine food. And not doesn't mean we're going to do it immediately. If you break your leg, are you going to be happy about that in an hour? Probably not. You get COVID, going to be excited about that? No, probably not. But as soon as you can wrap your head around it and your focus and your response patterns, you want to say there's something in this for me, and I'm going to look for what that is. I'm going to mine the gold. That's what I'm doing. I'm mining the gold. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm up to. And I am going to appreciate the hell out of my life. That's all I'm doing. Appreciate, appreciate, appreciate. I'm going to, just like if when you're a little kid and you're like, Mom, I want cake. I want cake for breakfast. I want cake for lunch. I want cake for dinner. And Mom says, Sweetie, cake's not good for you. And you're like, yes, it is. The divine is the same. We don't always take the things that we need because we don't like them. We want cake. But that's not life. So learn to eat our broccoli. Learn to eat and digest the things that are given to us and appreciate each one. And if you can master the art of appreciation for the moments you're in, life's going to get a lot better for you, a lot easier. Because then you are extraordinarily magnetic, that you have mastered essentially attraction. Because when you're in a state of appreciation, everything will come to you. All you have to do is set an intention. If there's something specific you want, it's going to find you. And then the last thing that's very helpful to alignment, aligning to what you're trying to generate in your life, is learn to recognize your own resistance. Again, why paying attention to how you feel is so important. Because a lot of us are brainiacs and we think we've got life mastered. And, we get to a period in life where we're thinking, hey, well, I got through college. If you went to college, or I got this job, and, now you got a house, and I've had some relationships. But truly, when we're going to next level creating, not just following the formula of culture, but we're trying to align with universal frequencies and, should I call them rules? I don't know if that's the right word, but we have to learn when we're in resistance to life. And the easiest way to know that is by paying attention to how we feel, because when we're in resistance, we don't feel good. We're frustrated, we're sad, we're bored, we are mad, we feel like victims, or, we doubt ourselves, all of that. And we don't want to demonize our resistance, but we want to see it when it's there. And then when we see it, that's our job. How do I get out of resistance? And the more times we do that, it's back to the gym analogy. This is the heavy lifting. This is where we get our inner strength. This is where we deepen our mental strength and our concentration. This is how we get stronger in our perspective. This is how our perspective can expand. So don't shy away from your own resistance and learning how to get out of it, because this is how we expand perspective. And expanded perspective is how everything comes to us. The more we see that we have, the more that will come to us. Quantum physics proved it. Look up Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, Nobel Prize winning physicists. They did these experiments, which were later duplicated by Robert Lanza, who was at Harvard a few years back. Now he's at Columbia. It's just remarkable stuff. And it just shows us how little we know about the universe. But we know that science, bit by bit, is doing its best to help us understand it. So these are some more examples of how we want to train our inner narrative and practice it. This is such a great moment. It's amazing how everything just keeps working out for me. Life gets better and better and better, and staying in the flow is easy and it's joyful. And man, it's easy to be in a relationship. I'm so comfortable. Life is so comfortable, and I feel secure, and I'm certain that life is supporting me. My life is working out exactly as it needs to be. And all my needs are met beyond my wildest expectations. Now, look at, you can say these affirmations, or you can figure out how to help yourself actually feel this. If you can generate these feelings on an ongoing basis, that's the ticket. That's super conscious living. And super conscious has far more influence than conscious or subconscious, because it's high vibration. So even though your super conscious or your subconscious might be taking up 60% of your energy and your conscious might be taking up 20%, you only need that other 20% because it vibrates at such a higher pace. It'll leave those other two in the dust. So these are all things are not created equal in that regard, vibrationally. So this is the inner narrative that will take you where you're trying to be, that's going to activate the magic in your life. So now here's a couple tools I crafted up for you. I call this to embrace these and use as guardrails. Okay. Focus and concentration are your friends. So when you hit those moments of resistance, when you're like, this sucks, I don't want to be here, I'm miserable, I don't like this, I'm a victim, man, life isn't fair. When you start going there, working your mindset, working that inner narrative, figuring out how you can surrender, reading positive books, reading spiritual materials, getting healings, or whatever it is you need, figure out how to surrender, but stay focused on what is true. Stay focused on the superconscious until you can actually feel it. So focus and concentration are your friends in this process. Use that concentration and focus to combat that subconscious that wants to pull you into the negative polarity. Next, learn to identify your emotional addictive tendencies. You know, us human beings are emotional. Hey, I'm a Pisces with a Cancer moon. I'm all water. I am one of the most emotional people I've ever met in my freaking life. It takes me about nothing to cry. Well, I cry at happy, I cry at sad, I cry at everything in between. I like emotions. They're fun. They're lots of fun. However, we can get addicted to them, and we can think that they are the truth of a moment we are in, whether it's happiness or grief or whatever it is. And a lot of us feel very comfortable in that place of, I don't feel good. And I can make sense of why I feel life is unfair to me. And how could someone do these things to me? And somehow, when we revel in that, it gives life a context that some of us can find satisfying. So learn to identify your patterns of emotional addiction, because when we're in our emotions, emotions take us off center, even happy emotions. Happy emotions doesn't mean we shouldn't have them, but we need to know the difference of when we're grounded and centered in joy, which is a state of being, as opposed to happiness or pleasure or something like that, things that are just happening to a momentary circumstance. And that goes with number three, which is process your emotion. Have it, but don't linger, certainly in negative emotion or complexity. Don't do it. If you're going to linger anywhere, linger in super conscious. Man, everything's going fantastic. This is great. Be careful where you linger emotionally, because emotion supercharges your thoughts. It supercharges those momentums and patterns that you have in place. All the more reason that we need to bring our emotional wounding into balance. Things have happened to us in our life. We have good reason to feel sad and upset and wounded and like a victim. But you want to solve that stuff. You want to solve it so you get to a point in your life when you reflect upon your past, you're like, that was for me. It wasn't to me. And I'm grateful for that experience. And that's truly how you feel. And if you don't feel that way about your past, I encourage you to do what you got to do what you got to do to get there. Because if we can't reflect on our life and appreciate it or see it as abundant in nature, we're working against ourselves. And number four, find a way to feel good about the moments you're in. All these kind of go together. The present moment, grateful, I'm appreciative. Even the hard stuff. Just think about if you went on a 10-mile hike. It's hard. You're going to be tired. Your bones and muscles are going to be aching. Your feet, depending on your shoes, are going to might be sore, right? But you want to find out what you're going to feel good about what you accomplished, right? Same way here. Some of this is hard work, but this is how you expand your consciousness, your perspective. Perspective is everything. That's why two people with identical childhoods can grow up and have vastly different experiences, because they see it differently. They see themselves differently. Their perspective is different. Raised identically by their parents. So the name of the game here, as I've said it many times, is the simple shift to bring magic in your life is to learn about your response patterns to life. That's it. I know we want a lot of to-dos. No, what job should I get? What career coach should I go to? What life coach should I go to? What psychic should I go to? What healer should I go to? Not that any of those things may not be useful in some measure, but the shift you want to make is in your response patterns to life itself. And when you dial that piece in, that's when your magnetism really rises. That's when you become more of a deliberate creator, where life can happen much easier for you and you can get more of what you want. Just have to understand it all begins and ends with you. Don't be concerned about other people. I don't mean don't care about other people in the world or in your life. I mean, what other people think of you, not your business. What other people think of your choices, not your business. If somebody wants to reject you, not your business. Your business is how you feel about your interactions in life and to yourself. That's the whole thing. It's amazing. So stay in the super conscious. Focus and concentration are your friends. And you've got this. You wouldn't be here listening to yours truly if you weren't ready for this information, if you weren't ready to try it on. So go out and have fun with it. And it's not a perfection game. It isn't. It's just pointing yourself in an intentional direction to have a different experience in your life, being aware of the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious and their impact on your creative process. Okay, my friends, I hope you find this helpful. So whatever you're doing, go about doing it and have a wonderful day.